Hello, welcome everyone. It's another Friday, so it's another webinar Friday. Thanks for tuning in. So today is going to be more like one of the traditional shows from the past. I'm going to go over some topics. So last week we had a guest. I was joined by Dilo. Check that out if you haven't seen it. Had a great conversation. We talked about passion and talked about kids, how kids got it all figured out. So you can go back last week and watch that. Next week I'll be joined by a guest again. So I want to show you. Let me share my screen here. There we go. So before we get into it, I'm going to show our website. Here's danalegalhelp.com. And if you want to catch up on some of the past episodes, the easiest way to find them is you can go to our YouTube page. So here's how I find it. So go to this YouTube link down here. There it is. And then videos. And then here's all the past show. So there's last week with Dilo. The week before that was kind of a different show. I talked about human assets, or I showed some examples of videos I've made, a bunch of clips I had on my phone, a bunch of time lapses. I put them to music. I had permission from the artist to use the music, so I posted them. But I did that as an example so you could see just how to create digital assets. So I won't play it today, but this is just basically videos from my phone that I thought were cool. And so I like to do that from time to time as a way to preserve the digital assets. Now, what's cool about our estate planning at Dane & Associates is our paperless solutions is we give you a way to transfer all the photos and videos on your phone. So that's something unique to us. I think it's an important part of estate planning. So today, here's what I want to get into today. I want to go over some of these are common questions that we see, that we get from time to time. What's going on here? Okay, so let's go with I want to talk about Dynasty Trust. I'm kind of lost in my presentation here. So we'll start with trust. Okay, so a subtrust is a trust created by your trust. So the most common is an age restriction trust, where you date at what ages the beneficiaries will receive the assets in trust. Special needs trust, or also called a supplemental needs trust. This is for persons that are on government programs where we want to preserve their benefits. We don't want to replace their benefits or disqualify them. So that's what a special needs trust is. Now, a dynasty trust, this is what we call it. It's the tax name's a generation skipping transfer tax type of a trust. But basically what this does, this gives your beneficiaries asset protection. So this, if you're receiving an inheritance, you want to receive it in a dynasty trust. This is the best way to go. There's other types of trust, education trust, pet trust we can do. If you're making a large gift to pets, we can appoint a caregiver for your pets and then a trustee that manages the money that you set aside for your pets. So that's pretty cool. Okay, dynasty trust. Let's get into dynasty trust. So technically, these dynasty trusts, they're an estate tax planning tool. Now, there's no real such thing as asset protection planning. Meaning, if you come see me and say, hey, Rilus, can you help me hide my assets so if I owe people money, I don't have to pay them? That sounds bad. That goes against public policy. But if you say, hey, Rilus, I want to do some tax planning and make sure that my family doesn't have to pay the estate tax, that's perfectly acceptable. Estate tax planning and planning for your estate is is a way that we can build in asset protection planning. So as part of how we transfer things to the next generation, we can build in some protections for them. This is important because, some people say, I don't want to worry about it. If my kids want that protection, they can set it up later. They can't really. They can't set it up as good as a dynasty trust. Now, the magic of the dynasty trust, it's because you create it for your kids. It's not the person with the money. So once the children have the money, it's hard to set up the protection. So here's how a dynasty subtrust works. So this example, there's 3 beneficiaries, and here's their ages. The youngest is age 18, and then 21, and then 33. The terms of this dynasty trust are the trustee discretion for the principal and income of the trust. Power of appointment, what this is, this gives the beneficiaries the power to appoint where this trust goes after they pass away, the power to choose the beneficiaries. And this is an estate tax tool. So it's going to be estate tax free to the next generation. So meaning once your kids receive this money, whatever it grows to and whatever the value of it is, when it goes to their children, your grandchildren, it's going to be free of estate tax. It's going to be outside or out of play, if you will, for estate taxes. Now, it's the same, this estate tax protection, it removes it from the estate where it's not going to be subject to taxes, the estate taxes. That's also how we get the asset protection. It's the same test. So creditors, they won't be able to reach these assets because it's not owned by the individual child. It's not part of their estate, is what you would say, if they owned it and had control over it. So I don't know why am I a little lost in my presentation here. Sorry, guys. Let me go back to here. Okay, I don't know if it's not displaying all of it. I don't see my person. That's not it. Okay, so the trustee is over here. And this is, yeah, you're really missing. This picture can't be displayed. Okay, thank you. So can you see down here, super tiny, this trustee? There we go. Oh, now I can't display there either. I don't know why it all of a sudden can't display. I've used this tons of times, but it's not liking it for some reason. That's part of the fun of these live broadcasts, huh? You can see what works and doesn't work on the fly. Okay, so I guess I'll stop sharing that since it's not displaying well. Right. Okay, let me close that and try to open it again. See if that'll work. All right. So if you guys are tuned in live and have any specific questions you'd like to hear, go ahead and leave a comment and check in the comments. So let's see. Thanks for watching, Eddie. Appreciate it. Appreciate the support. All right. Let's see if the Dynasty Trust will work again. We got to see the cool little visors. So I was pointing out earlier our YouTube channel, because you can watch videos and all this as well. So I have videos that use these same graphics. So you'll hear me explain this in a shorter and more concise way. And you can watch over and over if you'd like. Okay, let's see if this is going to keep our pictures in this time. Okay, subtrust. So here's Mr. and Mrs. Estate up here, the trust creators, the trustor. I use this briefcase to show who the boss is. So after they pass away, here's their children, and then here's the trustee over here. So with the Dynasty subtrust, trustee, so got the trustee hat for each one of these trusts. So while the children are under the age of 35, the Dynasty Trust is managed by the trustee. So whenever the beneficiaries want to receive something from their trust, they go to the trustee and he'll make a distribution. Now, usually how this works with most trustees is they have like an annual meeting and they talk about, what the child's or what the beneficiary's needs are, and then they can set up a monthly budget. So that way you don't have to go to them every time you need money. So there's usually some sort of like monthly budget. Now, at the age of 35, so here this oldest has turned 35, and the terms of this Dynasty Trust says that he can now become the trustee. So what that looks like, this trustee hat over here is transferred over to the child. So the child is the trustee of their trust, meaning they can control it as the trustee. They can decide how everything inside of here is invested. So if they want to buy a cabin or whatever it is, instead of pulling money out of the trust, they could do it inside of here, have the trust buy the cabin. That way it stays protected. So I've also heard these trusts described as, there's an attorney that calls it the high set trust. Have your cake and eat it too. So basically have all the control. That's like, having the cake, and then all the protection. So if this beneficiary got into a car accident, let's just say, that's one of the most common liabilities or the most common ways a liability is created. Gets into a car accident, someone gets hurt, and maybe it goes past the coverage that he has, and he's personally liable. Now, whatever over here, whatever's in the trust is not owned by him. So the phrase that we use, we would say this is outside of his estate. Outside of his estate, meaning he doesn't have the ownership of it. And since he doesn't have the ownership of it, his creditors can't seize it. So that's really how the Dynasty Trust works. We just separate the ownership from the individual child. So since it's owned by the separate trust, it's not owned by the child individually, and then that gives them protection. Okay, so Dynasty Trust, super cool. If you're helping your parents review their estate plan and update it, you'll want to make sure they have a Dynasty Trust in there for you. If they don't, come see me and we can add that in there. Now, I want to talk about what to do if you're the executor. Then I also want to talk about how to fix bad trust. So this is a topic I like. It's something interesting. It's newer in the estate planning world, but we can actually change an irrevocable trust. So let's say your parents passed away and you're administering their trust and you find out it doesn't have a Dynasty Trust for you. It's possible that we could do that. So the first question we ask, what are you trying to achieve? We can't change who the beneficiaries are, but we can create the intended results of the trust creator. So the best tool to fix bad irrevocable trusts, it's called decanting. So Arizona passed a statute a few years ago that says you can non-judicially, so meaning without court, change an irrevocable trust. And that concept, we refer to it as decanting. So decanting, the term comes from the wine world, which there it means taking from one barrel, pouring out into another barrel. So with the trust, you can remove from one irrevocable trust and place into a new irrevocable trust. So we can do this to get the intended results of the trust creator. So one of the common reasons that we do this for is creating a supplemental needs trust or a special needs trust. I've seen this happen several times where one of the ways we saw this happen is they had a trust that created a special needs trust for their beneficiary, and they did several amendments. We didn't do these amendments for them. Someone else did this. And along the way, that case had like 6 or 7 amendments, but they lost the special needs trust, meaning they were no longer funding the special needs trust. They weren't specifically transferring that beneficiary's share into the special needs trust. This was actually a California case. I'm also a California attorney, and this was the first year when California had their decanting law. I think it was it 2019 maybe? But that was, it was brand new there, but I've been familiar with this concept in Arizona, and I've heard other attorneys using it. Okay, now, can you add a dynasty trust by decanting? I put this asterisk there because it's a maybe. I think you can, but the dynasty trust, it may not have as much protection as if your parents created it for you another way. However, I do think that this is still an option. So if you're a beneficiary that's receiving an inheritance and they're in the process of the trust administration, this is something that a good attorney can help you with. I say good attorney. The California case I had a while ago, the trustee was in California. They had a California attorney there. And the lesson I learned in this case is that it's hard to get an attorney to do something. And my office all laughed at me when I said that. So I guess they already knew that. But I struggled to get this California attorney to use this new law just because he hadn't heard of it yet. He hadn't seen it done, and he was hesitant to get it done. We finally got it done. It just took like 16 months, but we were able to get a good result for our clients and to preserve this beneficiary's insurance and benefits. Okay, so requires attorneys to make recommendations with little precedent. So that's where that other California attorney was, too scared to do anything. There's a lot of attorneys I describe as they're scared of their own shadow. They don't want to do anything unless someone's holding their hand, showing them how it's already been done. But I think to be a good attorney, you have to be able to practice law. Get out there and apply the laws for the benefit of your clients. Yeah, so California, it was 2019. It was right. Arizona's had it since 2011, and the OGs are doing it before that. So this started some attorneys in New York where they were amending trust based on the idea that if the trustee has the discretion over the principal of the trust, they can use that discretion and change some of the terms of the trust. So if you have a bad irrevocable trust, there's some options. So it's important to get good counsel to help you after the fact. Okay, so now what I want to talk about, this is another common question that that comes up a lot. I want to talk about what do you do if you're the personal representative or the trustee, or the common word that people use, is executor. Now, Arizona and California, they don't use the word executor. You don't see that in the statutes. They use the word personal representative. That's who controls the estate. So an estate is everything owned in the deceased name. The trustee is the person named in a trust to manage it. So what do you do if you're that person, if you're named in a will or a trust? And we use this green visor to signify the trustee. So the first thing you do is define the players. So what that means is who are the beneficiaries? So beneficiaries, I use this hand. Decedent is the dead person. Fiduciary, where's that hat? And then the beneficiary is represented by that hand. So step one, figure out who are the players. Be multiple beneficiaries. Step two, what are the assets? So is there an IRA, life insurance? Now those things, they usually have beneficiary designations. So if a beneficiary is named, then that is controlling. Now, if there's a bank account and a house or real estate in the name of the deceased, oops, I'm not sharing my screen, I realized. There we go. So I'll go back a little bit so you can see these lovely graphics. Okay, so define the players: decedent, dead person; fiduciary, where's that hat? And beneficiary, who gets the stuff? We use these hands to show who the beneficiaries are. But after you figure out who the players are, step two is to figure out what the assets are. What is in the estate? Is there anything that's worth collecting? So with bank accounts and real estate in the name of the deceased, that's in their estate. Now, if their life insurance names a beneficiary, then that is not in the estate. If the life insurance does not have a beneficiary named, then it is part of the estate. Okay, number three, figure out what controls the assets. So see if there is beneficiary designations on the IRA and life insurance. So the house, this is showing that it's in the name of the deceased. So if it's in the name of the dead person, it's part of their estate. Or see if there's a trust, and if there's assets titled in the name of the trust. So this situation, the IRA is controlled by the beneficiary. Oops. Beneficiary names a contract, is a contract that names the beneficiary. The life insurance has a contract that names the beneficiary. We have a house owned by the individual, so in their estate, and then a trust that owns a bank account. So that's what's controlling the assets. The estate, things in the name of the dead person, if they have a last will and testament, that'll be controlling. That will name the beneficiaries and who's in charge, which is called the personal representative. If there's no will, then this is Uncle Sam here. So the laws of intestacy. The government has set out a default order. If you don't have a will, the government says who are the beneficiaries and who has the priority to serve as a personal representative. So that's how you figure out what controls an estate if there's no will. It's called intestate succession. All right, and the trust will name the trustee, which is what the fiduciary is called, and the beneficiaries. So what do you do after that? So after that, you follow the instructions. You follow what the documents say, what the trust says, or what the state laws say. Fiduciary duty, I bring this up. So it's not always clear, it's not always easy to figure out how to interpret these documents. But the trustee and the personal representative have a fiduciary duty. What this is, when you're managing assets for the benefit of another, there's a higher standard of care with these assets. So they have to make sure that they're not exercising any self-dealing, that they're treating all the beneficiaries fair, and that they're making the best use of the assets. So we recommend legal counsel to help you with that fiduciary duty and avoid getting sued is basically what it comes down to. So that's why people hire us is to advise them how to do that duty and avoid getting sued. And we can also show them options, how, sometimes how to get better protection out of their plan and to preserve benefits for special needs beneficiaries. We help determine valid debts and negotiate debts. This is something that I really enjoy doing, is negotiating the debts on behalf of the estate. a lot of times, I think just because we send over the offer on our attorney letterhead, we're able to get better results, or than if our clients try to negotiate that themselves. So that's a good reason to hire legal counsel. And then there's also there's a lot of scammers out there. There's a lot of bad people, and we'll see a lot of debts that aren't actually valid debts. So we help determine what is a valid debt, secured creditors and unsecured. The unsecured creditors, a lot of times we can avoid those, or take a really aggressive position negotiating with them. Tax planning. So sometimes there's different opportunities when we're transferring assets to do some tax planning at that time. There's our website, danalegalhelp.com, so you can reach out to us if you need help administering a trust. So, all right, so that's everything for today. Some of the common topics that we're seeing. If you have any other questions you'd like to hear about, reach out. You can leave a comment on this. We'll go back and look at them later and try to hit the questions that you have. And then let's see here. I'll put our phone number on the bottom. So we have a number you can text us at, or you can call us, or you can email us, go to our website, and you can schedule your, we call it a personal family legal session. That's the first meeting that you come to. You'll meet with an attorney. They'll give you recommendations for a plan that protects your family and does what you need it to do. And then usually you can get started designing that plan in that meeting, and get it done that way. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Next week, it's going to be another episode of the Live Pro Network. I'll be joined by a guest. So tune in for that. Thank you.